Can Ukraine ensure the democratic integrity of its elections?
I do not have much doubts about the integrity of the elections or whether the procedures would be followed, in particular due to crazy way of the Ukrainian democracy works. There is a competition, there is a real competition, and many of the front runners, they have numbers of technical candidates whose solemn task is really to observe the elections at the elections day. So somehow, due to this kind of a not really fair way of running the campaign, having so many technical candidates supporting the front runners, it works in favor of the Ukrainian democracy, so the process is followed. However, there is big concern about the access of the candidates to the media, and in particularly to the fact that almost every candidate has its own media empire behind, isn't really answering to the real questions of independent media, and there is a very, very limited success of independent media to front runners in order to ask clear and important questions. So everybody has its own tribune, everybody has its own kind of platform to speak without being challenged.
Are economic reform proposals of the leading candidates addressing key economic needs?
The problem of the Ukrainian democratic camp, and including the president who is running as if the representative of the democratic camp, is that for many years people didn't care about the poverty which people care. So there is kind of the bridge between what people care, especially in the smaller towns, and what is the political rhetoric of leading Ukrainian political parties. So at the same time, we have the candidates like Yulia Tymoshenko, who has a clear, not realistic, populistic campaign. At the same time, the candidate like Vladimir Zelensky has pretty much populistic but more libertarian approach with, smaller taxes but no clear understanding how then the states, where does the state takes money. So somehow there is no any realistic economic program. They are either driven by the, let's say, patriotism, ideology and things like that, without being appealing for the general population, which really is not very rich, or promising very, very general things, or promising things which in Ukrainian environment with a lot of vulnerable groups is kind of very harsh.
How will the elections impact resolution of the conflict in the East?
My opinion could be very unpopular among international experts, that the current situation is the way to nowhere, that the stalemate is really, really bad, first of all, for the population living in the frontline zone, living in the occupied territories, because there is the need for some kind of peaceful reconciliation, for some kind of the negotiation, and it should be constant work of the Ukrainian government and leadership, which is unfortunately not done. We hear a lot of kind of threats saying that, like, if something would change, the situation would be worse. But it's going nowhere. Therefore, I would consider that any kind of change is not that scary, unless, of course, there is always the Russian threat nearby. There could be always a moment of vulnerability if there would be a major change. We don't know how Russia would use that. However, to be afraid of that and just for that to keep the things as they are might be also very, very risky and not very good for the Ukrainian population, because what is my concern that none of the parties really is seriously speaking about the humanitarian conditions of the Ukrainian population. They speak generally about the war, but it doesn't look they really care about the people there.